A lot of realness comes out when you are faced with your shadows, and this is why people resonate so much when it comes to certain villains like the Joker from Batman or certain poets like Edgar Allan Poe. One of his famous poems was The Raven, where he descends into madness and he's talking to this raven, and the raven always replies with nevermore. And I don't know about you, but most likely you definitely experienced a moment in time where you are spiraling down in some type of madness. Oftentimes, though, people tend to stuff that away, and therefore they don't get to see the nitty gritty of that issue of why they're spiraling into madness. But with Edgar Allan Poe's poem, that really brought it out in people. People were able to read that and really resonate with it. It really dug up certain feelings that were stuffed away, because who couldn't resonate with Edgar Allan Poe talking to a raven and going crazy? We all at one point have gone crazy. It's just that a lot of people tend to stuff it away. And then it comes out during like weird moments, like at like a dinner party or something. Like you've seen that before. I'm pretty sure you have. So with me, I write a lot of dark philosophy in my stories because of those reasons, of being able to conjure up certain feelings that people tend to stuff away. And in this video, I want to talk about that, because when I write from that side of the field, dark philosophy, I do my best to bring enlightenment into what I'm trying to put out. Because with certain dark philosophers, they're just like, oh, the world has gone mad, humanity shouldn't be around, blah, 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 blah. But to me, that's too overboard. In my last video, I had spoken about that a little bit, and I mentioned how too much of one thing is no good. So when you go entirely bad, that's not good. But if you go entirely good, that's not good either. And in this life, in this world, we need the good and bad, because that brings out the balance in things. And you can see a lot of that from the darker side, because that side tends to have a lot of truth. The light side has some truth too, but the dark side, it brings out more. So in my book, I have written a darker version of a Cinderella story. I have the first book out. I just got finished with part 2, and I'm wrapping that up. And I just got started writing a horror book. So my hands are like filled with just writing a lot. But with my book, Cinderella, and my story, instead of Cinderella having a fairy godmother, she has a fairy god demon. It is a darker version. And I named this fairy god demon Romeo because, one, Romeo goes by several names because Romeo has been around for thousands upon thousands of years. And in this instance, he decided to call himself Romeo because he helps Cinderella get to the ball to see the prince. So he feels like Cupid in a way, but he is a demon. And throughout this book, he helps Cinderella explain, like, he helps her understand herself a little more, because there's something about her that's off. On the surface, she's good. She's also a servant to her stepmother and stepsisters, like the original story, but she's good, doesn't do nothing wrong. But there is something off about her that she can't even explain to herself. And her fairy god demon helps her understand this other side to her, and how she's not just good, but she also has this other element to her. And it's not as good, but it's also needed to bring out the balance of things. He also explains why he accepts who he is. He's designed to be a demon, that's his role, and this is what it is. He can't just jump ship and be very angelic and good, because that breaks the balance to things. And because of that, it brings out like this certain understanding to things. Also, with this character, Romeo, he shows what happens when you try to break the balance. When you have, like, say, like, if everyone was to be good, there's no demons, there's none of that stuff, just very angelic, blah, 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 blah. It's eventually going to get twisted. That, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find the word, but as of right now, things would get twisted if things were just one sided. Eventually, someone or something is going to crack, because you can't just have one element. When you have too much of just good, everything stays the same and there's no growth. When you have a good amount of chaos, it brings forth transformation. Um, and I noticed that with people who try to keep things on the surface, there's no growth. I notice a lot of people do not grow from their situations. Um, there's a few who do grow, but that's because they face their shadows and they accept the transformation, the things that need to be done in order to transform. But a lot of people who stay on the surface, that's where they stay, on the surface. They don't grow or anything. So I bring that out in my work. Also, too, there's something else that I want to say about there needs to be bad along with the good, because the bad, it tells the truth in ways, even though it's not like healthy, but it's like, how did we get here in the first place in order for it to get like that? So I notice with humans, right, as humans, when we're born, for the most part, unless you're like the select few that are born with your brain like wired a certain way. I think that's like 1% of people who are just born bad. But for the most part, a lot of people are born like neutral, right? Not good, not bad. All this stuff, all of this bad and good, it becomes conditioned with us along the way. And I notice people who tend to go bad, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why they got to that point. And people tend to not pay attention, kind of like stuff that away, or, whatever. They're not willing to solve issues, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. For an example, this may not be the best example, but someone like Hitler, what he did was beyond crazy. We all can agree with that, or at least I can agree with that. But there was a reason why he got that. He got to that point of madness. And if people was just willing to really hear his side out and come to certain agreements on things, maybe it would have never got to that point of no return. But I notice with villains, they get to that point for a reason. And that's why people can resonate with somebody like the Joker from Batman. To me, the Joker spits a lot of facts. There's a lot of things that I seen in the Joker that is like, this is so true. But he executes it in such a way where it's just like, okay, that's just, you can't go around doing these crazy things to people to prove a point. But you know what I mean? So this is where I'm getting at when it comes to writing dark philosophy and bringing out the shadow in people. Because so far, the people who've read my book, they all loved it. They all resonated with it on some type of level because of the things that I was able to conjure up in them. Because, like I said, people tend to stay on the surface. So, with that being said, because right now I'm in the park, it's nighttime, I usually get clarity when I go for my night walks. And these are one of the moments. I'm getting all tongue twisted, but these are one of the moments, and I wanted to share my thoughts on that. So, when it comes to writing dark philosophy, to wrap this up, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with this because it's not like, for me, it's not like I'm trying to put out bad messages, but it can easily be mistaken as such because of the side that I write on. But like I said, there is a balance between good and bad, and when you master both sides, you can like walk with your higher self. But that's another story for another time, because that's where I get at in my books. I lead you with an enlightenment to where you can reach your higher self. And that's all I'm trying to do with my work. And I love what I do.